Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live stream session. We're already at week number 2. And so each week we're going to invite coaches, athletes, officials, administrators, or volunteers to learn more about their journey within Table Tennis Canada.
Salut tout le monde, ça c'est le deuxième entrevue. Le dernier c'était la semaine prochaine et la semaine passée. Et on a avec nous ce soir un entraîneur. D'habitude, il y aura un entraîneur ou un joueur ou un officiel.
And today we're excited to welcome Saskatchewan's Paul Noël, who has been awarded the Coach of the Year by Table Tennis Canada.
Et aujourd'hui, on a avec nous un entraîneur d'une invitation très spéciale. C'est l'entraîneur de l'année. Il est du Saskatchewan. C'est l'entraîneur de l'année de tennis de table Canada.
Paul has been coaching table tennis in Saskatchewan for the last 7 years, including numerous years prior to Europe. He has been developed a huge grassroots program within the province, including developing a First Nations program, which has thriven for a number of years, which in turn has earned Table Tennis Saskatchewan a spot as a core sport in the Tony Coat Winter Games.
Alors, c'est Paul Noël qui est avec nous. C'est l'entraîneur provincial de Saskatchewan. Il a travaillé là-bas très fort. Il a développé un système de jeunes joueurs à travers la province et on va discuter avec lui bientôt.
We also have 2 surprise guests. Gabe, President, Table Tennis of Saskatchewan, and the Table Tennis Canada Committee Chair for Audit and Finance. And Alana Chan, the former national team athlete, and the chair of the Athletes Committee and the Board of Directors for Table Tennis Canada.
Alors, il y a une surprise pour Paul. Je ne sais pas si tu étais au courant, mais une belle surprise. On a Gabe Eng, qui est le président de l'association de Saskatchewan de tennis de table. Il est aussi président du comité des finances. Et on a aussi Alana Chan, aussi de la Saskatchewan, une ancienne joueuse, et qui est aujourd'hui présidente du comité des athlètes.
And here we have a little video and yeah, a good start into our interview.
Sound.
I'm not sure there's sound.
Yes, we need the sound, Thorsten. I'm sure they're saying some great things for you, Paul. Or maybe they're not, that's why they're muted.
Yeah, that's a trap. That's a trap with a 3 gang. Oh! Oh!
Thorsten, can you hear? Because we cannot hear.
We cannot hear.
We cannot hear you either. So maybe you're muted.
Oh, Sheena. Hi, Sheena.
Okay, so we posted the video online already. So if you want to view it, then it's a beautiful video, and hopefully the next time we can figure out the sound. So off to you, Adam.
What is it about? Is it players that Paul coached before, or what is it exactly, so that we know when we go and watch it?
I can hand it over to Alana. She can explain it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's players that Paul has coached before, except Sheena is more, I guess you've coached her too, Paul, but she's been a coach that's been pretty instrumental and worked a lot with Paul also. So just people in Saskatchewan who Paul has had an impact on.
Oh, okay, that's very nice. So I'll watch it as soon as we're finished. So let's start a couple of questions to Paul from my side, and then I'll pass it to the others. We met for the first time when you were 19 years old. I was saying earlier before we got on the air that you were a teenager, and you said, no, I was 19, but you know, 19 is still a
Yeah.
in this country
Yeah.
anyway. So you were young at the time. You were playing at the university championships for Belgium. I was there as a coach of the Canadian team. And I remember I always liked to speak to people around and so on. And you were the type that liked to come and engage and talk to everybody. Very friendly. I don't know now if you're still friendly, but at that time you were very friendly. And I noticed talking to you at that time that you analyzed a lot. Like you were talking to me about the Canadian players, about other players. This was in Teesside in England in 1980, very long time ago. And in my head, I said, oh, this guy is like me. You know, he's not just a player. He's also analyzing. He could probably become a good coach in the future. What is your parcours? What was your, from that day that you were a player at the World University Championships? How did you eventually become a coach?
Oof, that's a long question. So that first year, I started a master at university. So I was at university in physical education, and it's a little bit luckily that I end up at the World Championship with a friends to play, because our level was not that great. Let's say like that. And if I came to you or came to the Canadian team, it's because my level in English was so poor that I could talk in French to you, and you could help to translate and so on. And it looks like it was for me kind of, you know, not revelation, but destiny, that I got in contact with Canadian people, because now it turned out that it's played a big part in my life. So the story is, I was then a player, and because I was a student in physical education, I was naturally going to become kind of sport teacher or a coach. And I kept going playing till 82, 83, when we played in the first league in Belgium. And that year I played in the same team than Jean-Michel Sèvres, who will become world #1 later on, but who will play also a big role. And at that year in 83, the team split, and my president that time at the club proposed me to become a coach in that club. So
in your mind, did you have, for example, the idea that one day you would become a coach, or it just happened by, as you just described? Like,
no, the thing is that I will become a coach, yes, and coaching, yes, but not professionally, because coming back on that time, it was there were no position in Belgium for professional. It came later on with Sèvres and with Milan Stencil, and then after in 89, finally I will sign as a professional coach in TTC Jülich in Germany.
Mm-hmm. And did you coach any country other than in Canada? I mean, outside of Belgium and outside of Germany in the club, did you coach in other countries, or mainly from Belgium and Germany you came to Canada?
No, I was also coach of the Dutch national team, 95 and 86. So the two main players were Trinko Kane and Danny Heister. Danny is still involved as a coach of Borussia Düsseldorf. And then 1999, 2000, I became private coach for Jean-Michel Sèvres. And in the same times, I start working for Luxembourg. And in Luxembourg, it will be from 99, first 2-3 years, as honorary coach on a half-time basis. And from 2002 till 2005, I was youth coach in Luxembourg.
The reason I asked that question is because I wasn't sure if we had once a joint training camp, or I was there maybe as an official in Luxembourg, in this very beautiful stadium, which is made all of wood. You know, the inside is all of wood. And you had there in Luxembourg 32 rooms for 32 players that could stay there for training camps, and a beautiful hall where there was with a balcony on top. And I remember the coach at that time was German coach Ostermann. Is that right?
Ostermann.
Were you there at the same time?
I finished in 2005. Martin came after. He came in 2008.
Okay, so maybe when we were there for the training camp was with Martin Ostermann and Johansson, Christer Johansson.
Christer was still there. And I worked with Christer from 2003 till 2005.
And that was one of the world famous coaches, of course.
It's the legend. Basically, everything that we got as structure and training and idea and so on, that's come from Christer.
Okay, I'll ask Elena a question, because obviously she played in Saskatchewan while you were the coach. And then later I'll ask you a question about Gabe, actually. So Gabe has to get ready. Elena, when you were coached by Paul, what type of coach did you feel he was? Was he a very strict coach? I knew him as a very strict coach, but in Saskatchewan, how was he? Was he a very strict coach, or was he more flexible?
I think Paul had to learn a little bit to be flexible, I think. I think the culture in Saskatchewan is very different from the European table tennis culture. So it was adjustments on both sides, I think. And I think it was good. Like you want to have a certain amount of strictness, because otherwise people don't progress and you don't accomplish anything. But Paul was also really good at seeing the differences and learning how to adapt to a very different environment compared to what he was used to.
Yes, of course, in Europe and in Asia, it's completely different. And a lot of coaches that come to Canada or the US have difficulties adapting. So it's nice to hear that, because when I knew him as a coach, before he came to Canada, he was very, very strict. I can tell you this. I can tell you that he was. And I remember he has this gesture with his right hand. And when he's giving instructions, if he's doing this to you, you'd better listen, because he was very, very strict. Now I ask you, Paul, what about Gabe? Is Gabe a very tough boss?
No, I think that Gabe, it's really comprehensive and flexible also. And I think that we pass along together very well, because he understood that the flexibility that I wanted was only for the benefit of table tennis and here in Saskatchewan.
Okay, and Gabe, what about you? You've had several coaches in Saskatchewan for a long time. And I'd like to ask you a question, and maybe Paul can and Elena can also answer it later. A long time ago, maybe 25, 30 years ago, we used to get national team players from almost all the provinces. I think only the North and maybe Newfoundland never really had a national team player, but we had national team players from PI, you know, with Ed Suin from Saskatchewan. There used to be a player in Saskatchewan actually who was very good. He was number 3 in Canada or so. He used to play, his name was Charlie something. Charles Wu.
Charlie Wu.
And he used to play with this racket with 2 sides. He was one of the first in Canada to play with this pimple racket. And I remember playing him once in a match, and I returned the serve. Once it was up there, once it was in the net. He couldn't win a rally. So once you got used to his serves and you could play the rally, he couldn't win a rally, but he could win quick points. So he was on the national team, and after him, other players as well. Even from Nova Scotia, we had the Cada sisters, we had Julie Barton. So many players from across Canada actually at one point or another came to the national team, including Manitoba. Manitoba, by the way, had also players on the national team before Matthew Lehman. So when will Saskatchewan give us meaning Table Tennis Canada, some top players for the national team? What do you think, Gabe? Just in your mind, how long will it take?
Well, realistically, you know, a lot of our players that, you know, come play table tennis with us, you know, are, you know, mostly, you know, Asian descent. And, you know, we do have, you know, most of our players that come in might be through the, you know, immigration. And, you know, like with these smaller provinces, once they, you know, finish off their requirements for immigration, they might move to bigger cities, to Vancouver or to Toronto. So, you know, our players that we have developed, you know, it kind of feeds into some other provinces around Canada, and then, you know, they, you know, make it to the, you know, bigger teams. So, you know, I think, you know, from our standpoint and from kind of like my evaluation for our system here, it's mostly on grassroots development. You know, I don't think it's fair to, you know, to anybody to just, you know, pinpoint on the excellence results, because you know, when we take a look from our, you know, from our province perspective, you know, we could, you know, train someone, you know, quite a bit, and all of a sudden, hey, you know, our family's moving, you know, thanks for all your help, right? You know, so I don't think it is fair to, you know, to evaluate, you know, on the excellence criteria. But I think, you know, from our standpoint and from our, you know, our developmental standpoint, is we want to get into more, you know, more clubs, more communities, you know, and Paul has done an excellent job in doing that. You know, as you know, like in Saskatchewan, our population, yes, we have in Saskatoon and Regina centers, but we also have, you know, other places like North Battleford, Lloydminster, Yorkton, you know, to our First Nation communities as well. And, you know, Paul is very instrumental in building our program in these little small pockets to find us players that, you know, graduate to our provincial team. So, you know, when Paul actually, when he came to Canada, you know, it was, you know, not the easiest transition, right? You know, like, you know, coming to Saskatchewan, we have our, you know, minus 50-degree weathers, you know, and him not knowing a poor soul, you know, it doesn't really help things, you know, but, you know, he adapted very quickly. And, you know, even from our players, right? You know, a lot of our players, you know, they're, you know, I guess in Europe, you know, they're more, you know, if I'm in, you know, say table tennis, I'm 100% dedicated to table tennis. But kids here, you know, like let's say, you know, for my kids anyways, you know, they'll play table tennis, they'll play hockey, they'll play, you know, soccer, they'll try their hands in a lot of different things, which is okay. You know, and table tennis, you know, and Paul is, you know, advocating that, you know, it helps complement other sports, you know, the eye-hand coordination, you know, the thought process, right? You know, all of that helps. So, you know, he's, you know, Paul's, you know, essentially trying to, you know, and when he's meeting with the various educators, he's trying to sell that point to, you know, bring our sport to the forefront because of these attributes that we can help develop the kids, you know, even if they were to play in other things.
In hockey, a lot of goalies also play table tennis for reflex and so on. So I'll ask Elena this question. What do you think of this idea? Now I'm president of Table Tennis Canada. I'm thinking a lot about table tennis every day in Canada. It's giving me a lot of headaches. And as you can see, it's reducing my hairline quite drastically. I was thinking that for some provinces like Saskatchewan, where you have a very good coach, you have several clubs. Today I received from our office the list of clubs in Saskatchewan, and you have more than I expected. I really thought you had fewer clubs. What about if some provinces specialize in producing national team members, but for the junior team? So for example, at that level, because they're young and they can train hard, and I know the parents can push them, and you have a good coach to try and produce players for the junior team level. And then maybe the larger provinces or even some of these juniors move out to other provinces, and then they can continue on to the national team, the senior national team. What do you think, Elena, about this idea?
Yeah, I think that could work, even at the cadet level, I would say. When Gabe talks about people moving away, that's not a hypothetical. It happens all the time. So we quite often do lose our players, you know, when they're hitting around 15, 16, or the whole family will move. So I think like that's a viable strategy to be trying to, focus on the younger players. It could work, yeah.
Because when I think back, some of the provinces that produced good players that later came to the national team, or maybe even have moved to another province, it was always at the junior level. The provinces I mentioned, like Nova Scotia, PEI, and so on, they had produced very high level players at the junior level. And then some of them continued or moved to another province and continued, and some stopped, but at least they represented Canada at the junior level. Okay, I leave it now to Thorsten to ask Paul some questions. I know Thorsten has prepared some questions for him. Go ahead, Thorsten.
Can you hear me, Adam? Thank you.
Can you ask a question, or do you want me to continue?
No, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I think one question I want to know is, Alana became the Canadian champions in the doubles. And I just want to know from both of them, from Paul and from Alana, how that felt, how you prepared for that, and just what that moment was. So maybe Paul, go ahead.
No, lady first.
Okay. I mean, to be honest, there wasn't a whole lot of preparation we could do because I entered the doubles with no partner, basically, and got matched up with Yuli Rachel from Ontario. And we practiced. We had maybe 10 minutes before our first match, and we had to go. So there wasn't a whole lot of preparation involved, to be honest, but we meshed really well together. Paul coached us through it. I think something I've learned a lot from Paul is actually the strategy in doubles and the proper angles for playing, how to benefit your partner the best. And so we applied those strategies while we were playing, and that was pretty instrumental, I think, to us, winning the gold medal. And it was kind of a surprise because you don't know what to expect when you have a partner you've never worked with before, but it was just kind of kismet and everything just came together on that day.
Paul?
Yeah, personally, it was probably one of the greatest moments here as coaching in Canada. And it was not the first one with Alana, because with Alana last year in junior, I remember the morning when she had to play Anchi, and the difference between the morning and the evening was absolutely fantastic. The way she played also, and also what I'm really proud, I'm sorry to give flowers to myself, but I think I coached very well that day, and she applied it really good also. So, and about, like she said, it was a pleasure in that double that a partner could also understand what was really going on in double. Because sometimes players doesn't understand that they have to play for their partner and not for themselves. So, and also about service return and so on. Now we have to remember that Alana was playing in Belgium for 1.5 years. No, 1 year, 1 year. And she got very good practice in the women's league, where she could make a try and error over there. So she learned also. But just the moment was great, fantastic.
Thank you, Paul.
Can I ask him a question in French and then you can conclude, Thorsten?
Yeah.
Just one short question in French. Je sais, bon, Alana a joué en Belgique dans un club, mais je sais qu'il y a d'autres joueurs canadiens aussi qui sont allés en Belgique pour s'entraîner ou pour jouer dans la ligue belge. Tu peux peut-être nous dire un petit peu c'est qui et quand ça s'est passé? Est-ce que ça s'est passé à travers toi ou est-ce que c'était une coïncidence?
Non, ce n'est pas à travers moi, ça c'est une chose. Je crois qu'il y a eu Pierre-Luc Thériault qui a passé du temps là-bas.
Oui,
Et il y a eu
avant moi.
Marco.
Oui.
Marco Medjudorak a joué aussi là-bas. Et je sais que, je crois que je l'ai vu une fois à Liège quand je suis rentré au centre d'entraînement de la partie francophone du pays. C'est dans ma ville de Liège, c'est dans la ville d'Essèves. C'est assez important. Juste pour donner une idée, sur la ville de Liège ou la province, donc c'est grand comme Saskatoon, plus 50 km, avec un diamètre de... On a entre 5 et 6 000 joueurs, 5 et 6 000 joueurs qui jouent régulièrement les matchs, donc ça veut dire 2 à 3 fois par mois, il y a les compétitions et ça joue. Donc,
he's saying that in Belgium, several Canadians have gone there to train, other than Elena, also Marco and who else?
Thériault.
Yeah, that's right. And then he's giving an example that in an area like Saskatoon, there's between 5,000 and 6,000 players that are playing on a regular basis in the league and in the competition and so on. Elena, I'll ask you one last question. It's a fun question, and then I'll stop talking. When you were in Belgium, tell me what was your favorite food? What did you eat? You know, Belgium is very famous for food.
Yeah, the waffles.
Same for me. There is a gentleman called Andre Daman. He knows him very well. He was a coach, national coach. He was also the man who did the whole ITTF ranking system and so on. And every time he would see me, or he would bring from his wife a box full of Belgian waffles. That was my treat. Okay, that's it for me, Thorsten.
Yeah, I think we talked about the acclimatization in Canada for Paul, but I want to know from Paul, how was it coming to Canada?
For me, it was in 2011, so I'm here more than 7 years. It will be 9 years next month and 10 winters soon. I knew Canada from before. In '88, I spent 3 months in Manitoba, and I came there through Marianne and Adam because I wanted to learn English. I started to coach on the international level with the Belgian national team, and I noticed that my level in English was really too poor, and I decided to come in Canada to learn English. And so I knew already a little bit the system and how it was, the difference with Europe. Also, Ron Edwards, who is still the technical director in Manitoba, invited me in 2000 and 2001 to give training camp. He had a young player, junior athlete, Ramdeen, I think. And so I came twice for about 10 days or 2 weeks to Canada. And once I chose to come in winter. I wanted to see Canada in winter. And I came to Manitoba in January. We went ice fishing and so on. So it was part also of my argumentation when I had to negotiate the contract to come here, that I was not totally new. The only thing that I was expecting is to get a little bit more hill and different landscape than what I got in Saskatchewan. But fortunately, I got a fantastic sky and fantastic people who make my journey much easier.
That's great. Thank you, Paul.
And it's nice to drive without all those traffic and so on.
We have a nice comment here from Sheena Corpse on Facebook saying Paul has a vision for Saskatchewan table tennis and he trains everyone as though they are champions. So I think that is a beautiful way of concluding it. Congratulations and félicitations, Paul. It's exciting to name you coach of the year. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Marianne.
How nice is that? Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I wish you a good night, and we'll continue next week.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Merci.
Merci.
Ciao.
Merci.